waiting, since we haven't had a meeting since before the holidays, how was everybody's Christmas? Good? Sound was good to everybody? New Year's? Everybody? Who started New Year's resolutions that probably will start slowing down in the next couple of weeks? I had a bunch of my buddies going, hey, I'm coming to the gym. I've done it. New year, new me. In a one time.
It's been signed forever, for a long time.
Okay. That darn life just gets in the way.
Hey, a little bit of everything gets in the way nowadays. I mean, life,
Kids.
news, kids, dogs. Yes, sir.
The other day I was at the gym, I asked the front desk when the New Year resolution crowd was going to start. I said, oh, they've already come and gone.
Oh, yeah. It's usually 1 or 2 days, and then it's like
Week or so. From the time of year.
they all anticipate the first week or two.
Christmas.
They'll get 2 or 3 times the amount of membership, and then it dies off.
Yep.
All right, we're almost there. All right, Lisa, you ready?
I am.
Okay. Time is 6:30. We'll call this meeting to order. Mr. Hodges, would you like to lead us in prayer?
Sure. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you for today. Lord, thank you for allowing us to gather this evening to discuss matters pertaining to our city, and we pray that your guidance and your wisdom in discussing these items and guide us in the direction you want us to go. I just pray for the leaders of our state and our country. I pray that they, as they counsel in making those decisions, guidance this evening. Just thank you.
And folks, I know we're about to do the pledge and the Texas flag. I'm going to change things up for just a second on what Mr. Hodges just said through the prayer. I know everybody here in attendance, and even those in us in council, some of us have served in the military, or we have family members that serve in the military, or we know friends or family that are serving in the military. Please keep them in your prayers. I served in the military, so I know what that's like, but I'm also a dad. My son was activated and left 2 days ago to go overseas because of all the stuff we're hearing in the news. Please keep our military in your prayers, because they're going over there to do a job, not only to protect our interests as a country, but to protect those that really don't always have the ability to protect themselves. So, keep them in your prayers. All right, if you'll all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. All right. As I say at every meeting, please remember that the rules of decorum are in effect tonight. And I ask everybody, just please be civil. I know we have citizens' comments coming up, and I know there are things that people are concerned with. I just ask everybody to be civil about it, and enough said. All right, we will move on to citizens' comments. Mr. H., you are the first one. If you'll turn the mic on up there when you go up there for me, sir. Probably just one for now, because I don't know if they'll feed back to each other. There you go.
It's AG 1509 via Toscana, obviously city of McLendon-Chisholm. A couple of things I'd like to discuss. First would be I'll try to keep it brief, the 6.3 regarding the development. I'm not necessarily opposed to any form of development in McLendon-Chisholm to a degree. However, I am opposed to a city paying for the infrastructure for a private business without any guarantee that would be completed or any time frame when that money would be recovered to a business. My suggestion would be that if someone is willing to come into our city and build, that, more power to them, as long as it's approved by the council, but that if they are having financial concerns or needs to cover infrastructure such as sewage, that they would possibly maybe negotiate a little bit with the city or allow the city to maybe consider a tax abatement to where maybe in 24, 36 months you waive the city taxes so that they have an opportunity to come in. But I don't believe we should be paying any money, especially when we were told that we need to have taxes raised last year because we couldn't afford to operate the city. Now we supposedly have around $200,000 and we didn't need to raise taxes. So good job in cost cutting, but let's not waste our money on that. Also, as a resident of Sonoma Verde, the pit is extremely, let's put it, a lot of people get worked up over that. If we're going to allow businesses to tap into a system that only has the 2 pump stations today that seem to have problems operating, that I don't know the level of business that's going to be coming through there. I don't know the water and the sewage rates that would be flowing from these businesses without a true study. I also believe that people should be paying into the pit if they're going to tap into it. I pay $90,000 for my pit. The city's not going to give me $45,000 or give me a break on that either. So that would be a little bit of a concern, that if we're going to allow people to tap into that system, that we need to know what the tap fee schedule is. The city doesn't currently have one today. We need to develop one. And the next thing is, if people are going to use the sewage system, that they need to be paying an appropriate amount comparable to people that are currently paying for it, which is so I'd ask for that. I advise you personally not to approve any funds on a sewage system.
Lance, you'd had one other you were wanting to talk about that you have on here?
That was basically the PID topic. I just kind of threw that in there as well.
Okay. Okay, just want to make sure.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Ms. Stevens?
Bev Stibbins, 279 Partridge Drive, Rockwall, Texas. I apologize for the allergies. Mayor, council, and staff, I am speaking to you tonight on the agenda item about entering into a development agreement with MSS Properties. First of all, let me start by saying how disappointed I am. First, the Economic Development Committee, shame on you for not being better prepared for this type of agreement to be presented. What do you have in place? Councilperson Kippett, thank you for asking the question about the Economic Development Committee and the disagreement. Second, Mayor and Council, in my history, in your shoes, it was always stressed to me, if a developer wants infrastructure, they provide it. Every city planner I ever worked with in my 22 years in your seat stressed that taxpayers do not pay for it. We're not a large city. We don't have endless funds at our disposal. Unless you know something I don't, and I haven't been able to find, the $200,000 would not be recovered quickly in tap fees and prorated costs. What other landowners along that stretch of 205 have come forward with plans? From the staff report in tonight's agenda, Lisa clearly states it could be many, many years before anything is recouped. Is that the best use of taxpayer dollars? From what I've read and listened to, the types of businesses being presented are not the types the citizens have asked for. Every business that I heard Mr. Polani mention is just a short drive away to Rockwall, Terrell, or Heath. Another concern is how are you going to measure the amount of wastewater placed in a line in order to charge the businesses to crack them out? This is a concern I had with Sonoma Verde. No city-owned water, no way to measure the usage. Estimates on homes may be a lot easier than estimates on businesses to know what you're going to charge them back for the wastewater. I strongly encourage you not to enter into this agreement and spend $200,000 of taxpayer money without more interest from other landowners along 205, especially since these are the types of businesses the citizens have stated are not important to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stiven. All right, do we have any others? All right. There's no other citizens' comments. It is...
Mark.
Oh. You got to bring it up to Lisa.
With the topic, but it's the same thing everyone's
Go ahead and turn it on, because it's not on.
Road Drive, McLendon-Chisholm, 75032, and I'm coming here to talk as a resident of Sonoma Verde. It concerns me because living and on that taps and those systems, it's overflowing, and I have a concern for public safety and my neighborhood and my children that it isn't prepared for the commercial flow that could go into that. And I think that that's something we have to make sure, and when that is addressed, that we do have the specifications for any commercial flow. And so I think a study to ensure that we have that somewhere, or at least an investigation, if not a study, to make sure that it protects our community first. Also, as a person comes in, and there's no fault for a company that an LLC that's from 2017, and
Mark, turn on the other one, because that
all right, so we want to be welcome to businesses, but I also want businesses that are wanting to be here and be a part of this community, not just to make a quick buck off of, and I'm not saying this company is doing that, but making sure that it's a good fit for our community. If they're coming and not telling you exactly what a business is and they're giving you outlines or shells, then they're giving you developer talk. They're telling you what they think you want to hear, not what they're going to provide. And if they don't give you a strong outline of what you want your city, it's very risky for this community. The other part of this is the gas station across the street, and we have things like that. We want things to be an entrance to our city, I think, and as in our communities and where our homes are and where the high value of our homes are. If they don't look good when you're coming to see the great homes, they're going to turn around to some degree. And you want to be inviting. You want to say, this is our city. We live here. We're proud of McLendon-Chisholm. And we want owners and people to make sure that that message is clear. If you're not from here, and I'm not saying you're not, but if you don't have any ties and you don't understand McLendon-Chisholm, then it might not be necessarily a great fit. And if you're going to give tax dollars to someone, but you wouldn't give it to your own people here, that's different. And I think right, wrong, or indifferent, I just want to make sure it's the right for all of us. Whatever you do, council, is I support you, but I want to make sure that we do it right for us, not for the company. And I think that's what's important, because I know the Hodges family, I'm pretty sure the Short family, the Westner family, and I know the Dahl family is going to be here for many years. And the Kippa family, of course, sorry. Bloom? Sorry, I was trying not to make it so long and pandering, okay? All right. So, but my point is, the whole council, we're not going anywhere, you're not going anywhere, and I can pretty sure turn around, the majority of this room is not going anywhere. So why I say that to you is we're proud. I'm proud to live in McLendon-Chisholm. And I think the things that we want here, and I don't want it just because someone got $200,000 and they thought it was a great investment. Because they're going to sell that property someday. Because they're invested. Would I be wrong? Okay. So that's my point.
they're not truly going to be invested in our community. But the people who paid that PID did invest heartily, and they paid more taxes to be here. And then when we paid all that to build that sewer infrastructure, and they get the incentive and we don't, that's careful. But again, my number one priority is safety to my kids, to my community, and to anyone who wants to come here. Thank you.
Thank you. It is now 6:43. No other comments. Citizens' comment sheets? 6:43, citizens' comments are closed for the evening. Moving on to 5.1, consider approval of December 20th City Council meeting draft minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for December 20th.
All right. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right. Any discussion on the December 10th meeting minutes? All right. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Show that unanimous. All right. Moving on to the next item, 6.1, discussion and approval of the Girl Scouts and Rockwall Daughters of American Revolution conducting a flag retirement ceremony at City Hall on January 25th at 3 p.m. to include the McLendon-Chisholm Fire Department involvement in overseeing the retirement ceremony by providing the burn barrel and supervision of flag disposal. Ms. Kippett?
Thank you, Mayor. The Rockwall DAR and a local Girl Scout troop has approached the city to conduct a flag retirement ceremony out near the monument on the 25th, and I'm seeking council concurrence that we permit that to occur and use the MCFR to oversee the disposal of the flags. So I'd just like to get council concurrence.
Any concerns on it, council?
No, sir. It's a good sense.
Everybody's okay with it?
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
I don't see an issue with it. Do we need a motion on that? Okay. All right. Move forward with it.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to 6.2, discussion and consideration regarding funding a new position for code enforcement officer / public works coordinator. I put this on there. Folks, I know that one of the things that we hear a lot about is, issues throughout all our neighborhoods, whether it's the signs that go up all over the place or people doing some sort of solicitation or, these guys, and I use this one because I see it off and on, selling the little bonsai trees on the side of the road, things like that. Those are things with our city ordinances and a code enforcement person that we can help to slow that down. I'm not gonna tell you we're gonna stop it all, because that's, if I told you that would not be completely true. Just like, you have police in all these cities, but we're not stopping all the crime either. Code enforcement's not gonna be able to stop everything, but it helps to start slowing it down and stopping it as we can. I think it's to a point now with the city where we need to look at a code enforcement position. The reason it listed in here / public works coordinator is, we may have the opportunity to have multiple jobs or multiple job things that individual can do along with the code enforcement. So that's why that was put on here. I'm open for any discussion. I know you guys were given something in your packet of giving you some information on the proposal for the type of position. It would be like other positions that we do, we would advertise for it. Yes.
Well, I have one main question. I mean, we had talked about extending that opportunity for Chief Simmons, and is that a formal recognition that that's not something you want to do? I don't know if...
Well, my thought was,
Sorry.
my thought is that, if we put a code enforcement person out there with the additional duties, they could spend more full-time job doing code enforcement. Whereas, obviously, the chief has got additional duties managing from a fire marshal standpoint and a full fire department. You know, is he going to be able to do as much code enforcement as we need? Is, you know, and I hate to bring this development up because, you know, people have heard it through the years, good and bad. You know, Sonoma Verde would be a good example because construction is going on in there. You know, are things being enforced correctly or being enforced at all? You know, there are times I've gone out there and, you know, by Sonic and everything else, and you see all these billboards placed all over the place. You go to other cities and there's ordinance against that, you know, and, you know, code enforcement's out there enforcing that. When they find out who put the signs out, you know, things can happen. There can be, you know, fines within that particular city. You know, there are different things that a code enforcement officer can do where, you know, the chief may not be able to do it at the same time frames where we may need a code enforcement officer doing it. Can he still do that? Yes, but I don't know that he's going to have the time to do it to the length we might need it done. So that's why I'm saying maybe we need to look at starting the ball rolling for a code enforcement individual.
Mayor,
Yes.
so we started out with how many employees about a year ago?
Started what? I'm sorry.
How many employees did we have about a year ago?
Yeah, maybe.
So now what are we going to be looking at? How many more employees? No, how many more employees?
If you add the code enforcement, it would be one.
Plus a secretary and administration person, a part-time person. I think we're tacking on a little more than we need to right now.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I was just thinking we made a pretty big jump from having Chief Simmons do it, you know, to start off to see, and then to jump all the way to a full time seems to me to be a bit premature. I would rather get some metrics done to see what the need is versus going right full steam ahead with a full time position. And if we see, as it's in the staff report, that the chief has got more responsibilities with the creation of the new fire department and getting everything squared away there, I can understand that. But I would rather have viable, trackable metrics to see what is really needed before we hire additional personnel.
Well, we're not saying it has to be 100% 40-hour job.
Right, I know, there was alternate, but I even see that as a need because if we do hire a part-time code enforcement officer, we're going to need to get a vehicle for the individual, so that's an added cost. It's just something that we didn't really even talk about this past year during the budget cycle. And yes, we do have the option to be flexible in that, I understand it, but I would really like to look at the metrics. And since we don't have anything right now, I would like to gradually go towards what our requirement might be. Just a thought.
Nathan?
I mean, I think that this community is getting to a point where we're going to need some kind of code enforcement. Now, how many hours a week can we as a community devote to that? As you know, Lorna was mentioning, I don't have that answer. You know, so could we transition from Jim filling that role for a initial period of time, and then we, you know, as the need arises and his roles expand with the fire department, maybe we change that. But I think that we need to definitely look into that as a council, and it needs to be on our radar in the near future.
Well, when I was looking at this proposal, one of the concerns that I had about it was about amending the budget. I'd like to see where those funds are going to come from, and what part of the budget is going to be amended, and what type of things we're going to have to pull away from one group to give to the other. As far as being able to, I do agree that we do need we do need code enforcement. Probably not a complete full-time enforcer, maybe at the part-time as you have listed here, but I would like to see how it would affect our budget and how sustainable it would be with what we're currently bringing into the city.
What we were also looking at when it says in there, the way it's written, /public works coordinator is taking on additional duties that we're already paying outside for, just so you know.
If I could just add, I mean, since this was a little bit unexpected, we really haven't gotten a chance to hear from citizens a lot on this. And my suspicion is that since taxes and expenditures are always an issue, and people like the country feel, and they don't want a lot of city services, that I don't know that this is something I don't feel like this is where we jump off right now. I know code enforcement is an issue, but that's part of what, if anyone who's really lived in the country, they know what it's like. And, if we want to keep city government small, which really comes down to employees, I have concerns about this.
Might I chime in just for a second, Mayor? I think it's a very sagacious approach to the whole issue to decide what exactly that you want and what exactly that you need before you do anything. I think that's exceptionally wise. The reason why is this coming from almost 21 years experience. There is no middle ground on code enforcement. You either are all in or you are all out on code enforcement. You cannot dip your toe in the water and dally in. It is a commitment to code enforcement. It's a commitment to the citizens that, hey, you know what, we're going to have things cleaned up. It is the nature of the beast. Citizens will complain without a doubt. More of a guarantee than LSU beating Clemson last night, citizens will complain about code enforcement. It's going to happen. That's a huge undertaking for staff. It's an undertaking for council, because y'all will get phone calls about that. You'll get stopped in the grocery store about that. So these are all factors to consider. And it's basically a weighing. Is this what we want to do? Here are the factors. We put it on the scale, pros, cons, weigh it, then decide. But once you decide on it, you have to go with it, because it's not going to work if we're trying to change things here, do it different in this situation, or do it different in that situation. That's going to cause a mess. So we either don't do it at all, or we go for, now going full forward too. Don't forget, it can be part-time. We can say, hey, look, we're full force in, but we're at a code enforcement officer. We're going to pay 25 hours a week. I'm throwing that out there. 25 hours a week. Now, whatever they can get done in the 20, that's a full-time. That's a all in on code enforcement. It doesn't mean whatever investment you make, whether it's a small one or a big one, needs to be all in if you're going to make that investment. But again, it doesn't mean that it has to be a big investment in it. So I want to just encourage the council. I think this is the proper path to go down. I think it's the wise path to decide, hey, how do we want to handle this before we start handling it?
All right. So do we want to postpone, or do we want to consider this at this point?
I think we're kind of in the middle of a rock and a hard place, because again, we have a large subdivision in the middle of our community, and then it's surrounded by a more rural. So to think that we don't need some type of code enforcement, I think is a little concerning with the density within that neighborhood.
There's a lot of other neighborhoods, though, that have
Well, I'm just
HOA
using that as an
guidelines that keep those things in check. Sonoma Verde is growing. It doesn't have a HOA yet.
But
They do.
some of us don't have an HOA.
Here's the thing, it doesn't matter if it's an HOA or not. There are certain city ordinances that have to be followed no matter what area you're in. And those are enforced through code enforcement.
Right. But
I guess I'm just having an issue with, I thought this was already decided on. So that's where I'm at, is I thought we'd already made this decision, and now it's coming back at us. And I don't feel like today's the day to make that decision, because I thought it had already been done.
We can table it for another meeting.
Okay. get more information on what it would cost.
I mean, I would like to see, once Chief's just now getting qualified and getting certified, I'd like to see what the workload is. I mean, I think the person that's going to be able to help us answer this question is Chief, because he's going to be doing the work, and if he decides, yep.
There's 4 cases sitting right now on certain issues with junk yards and things like that.
Yeah,
that I am working,
it's been going
but at a
on.
very
Nice.
slow pace. And one reason is that our ordinances are so out of whack. I'm contacting people that I do know that are going for it and saying, hey, can you give me some direction? I have no problem to continue doing it. Don't have an issue with it at all. I'm actually in school this week, as you said, going through this code enforcement class, this new adventure. But there are cases out there, and there's about 4 of them right now, and they're sitting on my desk, and I do put some time into it, but it's not a full-time meeting. I do it on a very part-time basis.
But don't you think that too, once you do attack some of these, you won't need to, it'll be all dwindled down, you know what I'm saying?
As I learned in this class, you tap one and another one pops up, you tap one and another one pops up. So you're never going to get a hold of it where you have 0 code enforcement issues. Wait till springtime comes back and I'll have 15, 20 calls of people complaining about high grass at an intersection or high grass in a open lot area of city hall property around these neighborhoods. So it never goes away. We will always have code enforcement issues. And by no means am I saying that I have a problem doing it. I'm agreed to do it. This would be, if this position that has come up, it would be presented and accepted, and now you have a couple of people, but you have somebody that's committed full-time. I mean, I'm doing, like I said, it's a part-time basis.
Right. Again, I just thought we had this decided on, and so I think we just need some more time and more information.
Mr. Mayor, I know this is potentially bureaucratic response, but if there's a way you could track your time that is spent on this in the next 30 days to give us a bit more substance as to what it's actually entailing. And I think the more information that we get that's fact-based, it's easier for us to make a fact-based
Code
decision.
enforcement's there. Whether you're spending, 40 hours a week on or not, code enforcement is there. And I'm going to give you a handful of hours. And that's just being honest with you. I'm working right now and making sure that we're complying with NFPA 651 on deconning our bunker gear on fire scenes and making sure that our new policy is up to date, that I have to submit back to the commission by March 1st. So there's a lot that I've got to do. And I do go out and I will, at times when I have free time, just go drive the city, just so I can go out there and see if there's things out there. But, sometimes I find that like, all right, I'll get to that, and then I get tied up in, some of the things I've got going now. So I'll be more than happy. If you want me to track it for 30 days, I'll do it. It's going to be low hours. It's just being honest with you.
But you're getting additional salary to do that.
Yeah, absolutely, ma'am. Maybe we've got to make sure this is clear. As I'm not saying I'm not doing this position, so
Right.
this is not going to be, yes, you agree to give me additional salary, but I have not said that I'm not going to fulfill
Right.
the agreement that I gave to council that I would cover this. So, this is up to council. If you got this position, and I'm currently sitting in this amazing class, get certified, so I have a better understanding of what we need to do.
Well, I agree with Jim. I think we will, maybe give some time to let us hear from what the citizens maybe have a better solution than what we're thinking right now. So,
Well, Mayor, I'll go ahead and say, as a citizen, I'm going to take my council hat off for just a second, that there's been an ongoing issue in my area that doesn't have an HOA. I don't want to get into the specifics of it, but it's been going on for a couple of years. And if we do have a code enforcement officer or somebody to address that, maybe the long-standing issues that have been kind of overlooked, maybe we can be, as a community, more proactive in those areas that don't have HOA, that don't have that governing authority within the neighborhood itself.
who sort of did it before? I'm using the word sorta did it before.
Dave Butler did it when he was here. He was a certified code officer.
And what was his position?
He was city administrator.
It was similar to what we're kind of talking about now. He would kind of do it on an as-needed basis.
I still have some cases from when he was in office. Not nothing against Dave Butler at all, didn't say that. But we still have some cases that we're working on when he was in office. And one of the things is making sure that we get our ordinances up to speed, get them up to current standards so that we have a little more enforcement power. Right now, I could go out and submit a letter, which I've done to people when it comes to high grass, more than 25 feet around the property, because that's all they're required to do. And we'll comply.
And so when you say that you think that the ordinances need to be brought back up to date stuff, who would you suggest that position? A code enforcement person that's not there yet, or?
Well, I mean, having some input from somebody that has the experience in that field obviously would be good. I'm not a code enforcement officer. And, I haven't aspired to be a code enforcement officer, but I have no problem doing the job. I mean, it's gaining compliance, just like when I was many years of being a police officer. Goals to gain compliance, different avenues to take. Code enforcement is making sure that we understand the state regulations, state statutes, and then city ordinances, and all are kind of weak, so we need to change it. We need to fix it. We've been trying to work on it, honestly, and that's one of those things I'll bring up. We've been working on ordinances and stuff for, well, as far as I can remember, as long as I've been here, for over a year now, and it's just we can't, we work on it a little bit, and then we get pulled off to our daily duties. Today, TVs don't work. I know Miss Lisa and Miss Shelley spent much time working on the TVs there. So this position is not just code enforcement. From what I'm understanding from not reading, it's going to wear multiple hats that I think personally would benefit the city. If not, guess what? I continue to do my job, and I will go out and I will handle code enforcement calls as they come in. Again, as I say, as they come in.
You brought up a good point. I mean, the way this recommendation is written also, that code enforcement is the job, but they'll also do the lawn here, and they'll do facilities maintenance, and they'll help the city secretary and the city manager and all these things. And I could see as either not living up to the code enforcement expectations or having to hire some of that stuff anyway because they're so busy on the code enforcement. And that's something else that I think the getting some background on the time spent, the opportunity, the cases that can't be followed up on, as a result of the time you have, that type of thing would help a lot.
The council decided they wanted this down the road tonight or whatever, then now you're going to have two people. You're going to have a second individual. I have no experience. Hopefully you would hire somebody with code enforcement experience, but you would have two people that would be able to handle those duties if need be. And then, as Councilmember Bloom said, it's not reading that document, reading information. There's not just code enforcement. It's facilities. Now we've got 3 more city properties, or 2 more city properties, City Hall, Station 1, Station 2. I've got to keep those mowed and make sure I don't get letters from the code enforcement officer saying my week is too high. So we've got to keep up with all that stuff. So, I'm content either way.
Well, then what I'm hearing is we need to readdress this probably the first meeting in February, which would give us about 30 days. It would be February 11th. That would give you the opportunity to give them some numbers. I know.
I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm in code class this week, and I've still got to steadily work on our new policy for NFP 1851 to make sure we're in compliance. So I've got to I like to inbox. I'm not saying that code's not a priority, but right now I've got some items that are more important that I need to get done. So we'll do the 30 days, and I'll be honest with you. If the list comes back with 4 hours, that's how much time I was able to put into it. So I just don't want anybody to have high expectations that I'm going to bring back this list of 30, 40, 50, 60 hours, because it's not going to happen, especially in the next 30 days.
It's not just hours, it's also complaints or that type of thing.
Right. Yeah, complaints, absolutely. I'll bring back the statute of complaints and say, here we go. This is what we got outstanding. 2 big cases outstanding for at least a year.
Jim, when do you finish the coursework?
Friday.
This coming Friday?
Yes, sir, it's a week on. And then take the test. The state has got an issue with the current test they have that they're teaching us in class. The test won't be ready until March 1st. But that doesn't keep you from doing code enforcement. I'm a peace officer in the state of Texas, and I have the authority and the rights to be able to enforce all city ordinances and state laws, so it doesn't keep you from doing it.
Okay.
So we want to table it and rediscuss it in February? Lisa? Moving on to 6.3, discussion and action regarding consideration of entering into a development agreement with Mohammed Polani representing M?
Sir.
Huh?
You would need a motion to table it and
Oh.
vote.
I'm sorry, I'll entertain a
That's all
motion
right.
to table it until February 11th. That's
You
the
don't
first
have to. You can just put it back on the agenda. You can just tell Lisa to put it back on the agenda for February 11th.
We just good with putting it back? Just put it back on the agenda. We're good. All right. Now, 6.3, discussion and action regarding consideration of entering into a development agreement with Mohammed Polani representing MFS Group, LLC, to include a cost-share agreement for a wastewater line. Council, before we move into this, what I am going to ask is that we listen to, or if we have concerns, questions, to listen to Mr. Polani and all that before we make any decisions or motions to make a decision on this agreement. I know that it appears to me that there's a lot of questions going on. Ms. Lisa, do you have anything before we open this up?
I'm happy to go about this any way you want, Mayor. I've been taking in some questions for the last week or so, and I've kind of prepared some things that I think would offer some clarity.
Okay.
And I'm happy to go through that if you'd like now, or if you want to ask the applicant question first, however you'd like to do it.
Council, do you want to ask questions of Mr. Polani first, or do you want to hear from Ms. Lisa first?
I just have some factual information I'd just kind of like to clear up.
I'd like to hear from Lisa, may avoid some questions.
Okay, sure. All right.
All right,
Jim,
cool.
we don't need you anymore tonight, by the way. Thank you. Not being rude, but I know you have other duties.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, bud.
All right, I prepared this. You'll forgive that I actually wrote a little bit of a script here, but I didn't want to forget anything. So as questions have come in, as I've seen things just circulating in the neighborhood, this is just meant to address some of those things to kind of clear up some information. It's not meant to sway you in one direction or the other. It's just meant to be neutral, factual information. Just a little bit of background. The only area in the city that is sewered is Sonoma Verde. I'm sure most people know that, but just so everyone's clear, the Sonoma Verde Development Agreement planned for future expansion of the wastewater line to provide capacity to Sonoma Verde, the residential development, and an elementary school within Sonoma Verde, and the commercial development that was expected along Highway 205. And I'm going to read just a little bit of an excerpt, it's very short, from the development agreement. It says, the wastewater line shall be 12-inch pipe, which pipe will have capacity to serve the owner's needs as described above, an elementary school site in the property, and the commercial uses in the city's central commercial district along State Highway 205. So this was planned from the beginning, and there's plenty of capacity for commercial. I know that was one of the questions was, do we have the capacity? The PID and the assessment Sonoma residents pay is not related to the wastewater line in the proposed development agreement with the MFS Group. The city owns the wastewater infrastructure in Sonoma Verde, and we may connect to extend that line to serve the commercial area. Extending the sewer line does not affect the capacity for Sonoma Verde. Capacity was considered when the original line was designed, and the residential usage peaks at a different time of day than expected commercial usage. During the day, you've got showers and bathrooms being used heavily in the morning, maybe in the evening. More water is being used, more wastewater generated due to dishwashing and other cleaning up efforts, that sort of thing. Commercial development's probably not going to have showers. It may have some restrooms, it may have some sinks if it's a restaurant, that sort of thing, but it's not going to have that heavy usage at the same time of day that your residential does. So all that was considered when the line was originally developed. Something else that I've kind of seen just out there and about, and I just think maybe it's a misunderstanding. The proposed agreement as written in the packet does not give city funds to the developer. This is a city building, if we follow the development agreement as written, this is a city building a city-owned wastewater line which becomes an asset to the city. The developer is agreeing to participate in the cost so he may develop sooner rather than later. So that's what this is. Cities use a variety of methods to provide infrastructure for commercial development areas. Cities may choose to build a wastewater line at city expense and then charge pro rata fees as property owners tie into lines. A larger developer may choose to come in and pay for a line and then wait for property owners to tie into that line and get money on the back end of it. Smaller developers can't often afford to do it that way. Some cities form economic development corporations dedicating a half-cent sales tax to pay for incentives to bring businesses to an area, which may include paying for infrastructure. Other cities may hold bond elections for infrastructure projects, and some may qualify for certain grants to bring new business to cities. We've actually looked at that a little bit, and for everything that's out there right now, we don't qualify because our income level in this area is too high. So usually it's for poor economic areas that desperately need jobs or have low income requirements, and we just haven't met those. McLendon-Chisholm is unique that we have such a low tax rate compared to most cities in Texas, which is fabulous. But the more people that move here and purchase expensive homes, the expectation level for services rises. The only way to keep taxes low and to provide quality services for a growing community is to generate revenue from other sources. The city has had this general business zoning along 205 in place for years, and to my knowledge, no one has ever asked to reverse it back to agriculture. There's been a lot of talk in the past about wanting smaller businesses and boutiques rather than large big box stores. The problem then becomes that the smaller businesses can't afford to fund infrastructure such as a wastewater line. Those smaller businesses just generally don't have, trying to get a small business established, they don't have the same funds as a Walmart or one of the larger corporations might. So that leaves the city trying to decide, do we want to spur that development to get things started, or do we want to wait and see what comes our way? So that's the dilemma and why we're considering the development agreement today. The developer wants to bring business to town, but cannot without the infrastructure. The other alternative is to have a business on a septic system, which we looked at originally. We already have one example of this in town, and we've had some issues with it. Also, it's not generally considered the best and highest use for commercial property along a major thoroughfare to use part of the property as a septic field. So businesses need that prime retail land for their business and for parking for customers. A septic field just doesn't generate business. So those are some of the things that I've just kind of heard, and I just kind of wanted to address. Again, it's not really meant to sway you one way or the other. Just kind of wanted to clear up. The development agreement's kind of long, and maybe not everybody had a chance to go through it cover to cover, especially citizens. It's, you might fall asleep reading it, but did want to address at least that much. If you've got further questions about the agreement itself, I'm more than happy to try to go through those with you, answer all your questions.
Any questions for Lisa?
Lisa, one question I had, just looking through the agreement itself. I don't know if I read this wrong or not, but it sounded like that the developer was going to be the one basically in charge of hiring the company to put the water line in, and they were going to be overseeing it versus we as a city doing that. Is that correct?
We did put the burden on the developer's engineer to take care of most of that. They would still have to use appropriate bidding and go out and find the best company, most qualified company at the best price to do the job as far as the installation of the sewer line.
Okay.
We don't bid out engineering services because that's a little bit different. That's a professional, and we don't do lowest bidder on things like engineers and architects. But for the work itself, that engineer would be responsible for putting out that bid, and we would want to see that advertisement. We want to advertise in our newspaper where we normally advertise those things, probably on our website. They'd have to go through a process just like if we were doing it ourselves. But we put the burden on them to do it, just to relieve us from some of that burden.
If it helps any, some of the things that we spend money on are regulated by 252 of the local government code, the bidding, the purchasing section of local government code, and those are for like contracting deals. Hey, we got a project, we need to have it constructed, we're going to get the lowest responsible bidder, boom, 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 that's taken care of. Other things are governed by 2264 of the government code. And those are some specialized professional services such as accounting, engineering, and things like that. That is a completely different, you got to get you do a request for qualifications, and then you choose the most qualified individual, and then you can negotiate price. So that's why there's a little bit, there was a few different steps there between the two different things.
Ms. Lisa,
Yes,
where
ma'am.
exactly will the money be coming from? Is it ad valorem tax money or what?
That's a great question. So right now, we're looking at just the general fund, and I pulled accounting information as of today, looking at balances and such. At this time, we don't have all the tax money in for the year, so most people pay their tax bill in December. So those monies, most of it has probably been collected, but it hasn't yet been deposited into our bank accounts. But looking at it last year, when you did your budget, you came up with a fund balance policy, which was great. And we have a fund balance that's not going to be touched, that would have $395,000 in it, over and aside, never touched. We also have a fund for fire capital expenses in the future, trucks, whatever we need, $325,000 that would also be untouched. We have a budget this year where we're probably getting in, I think it was a little over $500,000 for ad valorem taxes, and then of course we generate revenue from building permits and for some other things for a total budget of $1.3 million. On average, this is just kind of average, I know it's a little bit hard to follow, but we keep in the bank accounts, all of our bank accounts, between Alliance Bank and our investment accounts, about $1.4 million. It goes up and down as the year cycles. So between October and January, it's going to go lower than that because we're waiting for the new tax money to come in. As our bank account sort of fills up about this time of year, we start seeing those deposits come in. By next month, we'll probably see 95% of it. It's going to go higher than that. It'll go closer to $2 million. And then over the course of the year, it kind of drops back down. But we would use, at this time, we plan on using general fund money. So those funds were generated from tax dollars.
Okay. And I know you and I spoke offline. Are we able to talk to any other cities our size that get into kind of agreements like this with developers, commercial developers?
No, I'm not aware of any specific projects. If I had a lot of time, I could probably call around and see, but I don't know of any specific projects where a city has done it quite this way. I'm sure it has been done this way, but I can't give you a specific example.
Okay.
Hey, Lorna.
Sir?
I can kind of speak to that. I did reach out to 3 council people in Rockwall. My sister is mayor pro tem in College Station, and then a friend down in Leander. And all of them said that they have deals similar to this, that it's not unusual. But for sometimes, like for neighborhoods and that type of thing, the burden will be more on the developer. But for spurring the potential for economic growth, that they have done deals like this, that they'll consider like roads or anything else, that they'll lay it out there.
I spoke to a couple folks too, and they said these type of deals aren't unusual with cities, but they usually use sales tax dollars, not ad valorem tax dollars. And that way you're taxing that you're getting the money from, the people that drive through and go get their Kit Kat bars, not the folks that are, living in the thing. And I was just looking at it that way as something that could be more palatable if we use tax, but we don't have that kind of thing.
Well, for our particular budget, we do take in some sales tax during the year. I think a couple of $100,000 is what we brought in last year, maybe just a little bit over that. Hopefully this year we'll do a little bit better. But all of that actually goes to the same place right now. So, we get the ad valorem taxes, we get sales tax, and it all goes into the general fund. It's the same pot.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Ms. Lisa? All right, we're ready to listen to, or ask any questions of the developer?
Sure. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, Mr. Polani? If you'll turn on one of the microphones for me, please.
Good evening. How are you?
All right, questions for Mr. Polani?
You heard how some of our residents have concerns. Can you help clear up any of their concerns?
Sure. We talked to the city, and top of the $200, we are investing another $100,000 top of it. The $50,000 are part of it for the agreement, and $50,000 is a security deposit to the city. Once we pull the permit for the development, and the city agreed to pay half of the time, and half of the time is the first tenant get the CO.
So what he's talking about, just to kind of clear up a little bit, is we did decide, I was worried that, mid-build, anything can happen, and so I wanted to make sure those buildings get built. And once we start this project, I didn't want to put a sewer line in and not have a building in the end. So just for assurances, we did ask for a $95,000 deposit. We started with $100,000, but he had to pay his engineer some money up front to do some preliminary engineering to make sure all this was going to work. So we took a little bit off of that. So we asked him for a $95,000 deposit, which we would hold until those buildings, a building permit's issued, and then part of it would go back actually when there's a certificate of occupancy and those buildings were ready for occupancy. So we would return everything except the $50,000. So, but up front, we're going to use this money first to pay for things, and then when that's expired, then we would use the rest of ours, and when finished, we would refund him all back except the $50,000. Is what the way their agreement is written.
Sir, I went to your Balch Springs building, and there were five businesses there, a beauty salon that's vacant, insurance office, a cell phone office, a Mexican restaurant, and another vacant building. What is your What's your turnover rate on average in your various businesses that you have?
You want to answer that?
Well, as of day before yesterday, the beauty salon that you said was it's not vacant anymore, so they are occupied now. So only one space is vacant.
So point in time, it just happened to be the point in time that I went.
Yeah, so only one space vacant now. All those 4 tenants that are there, they have 5-year lease term. So
5-year lease?
5-year lease term, yes. So initially they have committed for 5 years. Again, depending on the business, if they go out of business, and it's unfortunate for them, obviously, but we try to have 5-year term lease, so this way they are committed for long term, and this is our goal also here in this town as well, to have established business, quality services that would provide to the city, bring employment opportunity to the community when you have development or center like that. So this is our goal here in this city.
I believe I've expressed my concern on when the building is built and then 205 comes in, and most businesses struggle when 205 is going to be expanded, and just the sales is not there. I'm just concerned about that, for one thing.
Neighborhood businesses generally, again, like I said, earlier, businesses do fail time to time, but it's anywhere. It's not just, wherever the construction's going on, people do struggle for the time being. But then businesses who are in business, they don't look at the short term. They're banking on, okay, once the construction is done, then the business will, of course, flourish. And 205 is a great, a lot of traffic right now.
Right,
and
right now it is, but the building's
right,
not there yet.
but then, people in this community, they use these services on a daily basis elsewhere, right? And but when they have the businesses here in town, obviously they will want to promote those businesses too. So I don't see the construction as a major hurdle. For the time being, it may be an issue, but over our experience throughout the Metroplex, they do suffer, businesses do suffer for the time being, but in the long haul, they tend to do better after the construction or whatever the calamity, they pass through that. So, again, we go back to the same thing that, businesses, do prevail for the long haul.
I have a question. It's been brought up that typically the types of tenants that go in your buildings are more service-oriented, which don't really generate sales tax revenue for the city. So it's a nice service for the city, but, beyond the property tax, if I'm not mistaken, it's not a big revenue generator. And I was curious if that was based on relationships you have or the square footage, or what influences the tenants to be more likely to be service industry than commercial or retail, that type of thing, that would have more sales tax?
Well, services business, like neighborhood businesses, dry cleaners, nail salon, hair salon, typically, they're small tenants. But restaurants, dine-in, sit in nice restaurants, doctor's offices, dental or any physician offices, they tend to take larger square feet. So it's a combination of the center. The way we're planning, it's a combination of small and large tenants, and neighborhood businesses for any developing community is the key. And anywhere where a city is growing, those businesses, when they come in first, they do tend to survive for a long haul. So I'm not sure if I answered your question, but
I mean, is there a way to attract more retail-oriented business as opposed to service-oriented? Like, let's say a CPA or an insurance company. Those are nice to have. It could be convenient for people, but it's not going to bring in revenue, which is kind of important for us right now.
You're talking about revenue for the city?
Correct, yes.
Well, it does. Well, these local businesses, number one, they create jobs for the local community, right? You look at from that perspective. Of course, when people here in town, they had jobs. Obviously, it's good for the city. In terms of revenue for the city, they do pay taxes, the businesses, for their personal properties, but they have inside their building, plus inventory taxes. I mean, generally, it's they do bring taxes revenue. Retail and services business, they both bring, but I'm not sure the expectation of the city of what level, but they do bring a tax dollar to the city.
I might want to add just something. This particular lot, I can't remember if it was in your packet or not, but it is heavily deed restricted. When it was sold, it's got a list of things that are prohibited. So things like pharmacies, anything that could basically compete with Brookshire's, who owns a lot next door, is prohibited from being there. So that does limit some of the retail opportunities they have and leans it a little bit more towards the service types. One question I have for Mr. Polani, and we haven't talked about this yet, how do you generally find your tenants? Do you put up a sign and wait for them to come to you, or do you go seek out different types of tenants?
I mean, obviously, the sign on the lot, but obviously, we will hire our realtor company to bring the tenant to us, yes.
I have a question. I don't know if it has to be answered in executive session or not, but is there a way that, I mean, Brookshire's is essentially holding that corner kind of hostage, right? I mean, preventing us from doing what we need to do to grow as a city.
They have a 50-year
Deed restriction.
Wow.
Yeah.
I would like to suggest that there's a way that we can speak in
That's going to
exec.
have to be held with
Yeah.
something else. We can't talk about that tonight. All right. No other questions for Mr. Polani? All right.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you.
What I want to do is move from that to 7.2, recess into executive session in accordance with Texas Government Code Section 551.071, consultation with the city attorney in a matter in which the duty of the attorney to the government body under the Texas disciplinary rules of professional conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with this chapter regarding consideration of authorizing the city administrator to enter into negotiations with Mohammed Polani, representing MFS Group, LLC, for a pro rata performance agreement for a wastewater line. It is now 7:33. We'll recess into executive session.
Thank
I think so. Unless he's talking like a, yeah, then I think they get it. Kind of like a subscriber service. Right. We're just waiting on one council member and then we'll start back up. That's what I hear. Well, they do some every couple of years. They just do some new ideas. You ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. Lisa, you good? All right. 8:31, we are back from executive session. Based on discussion back there, we are going to direct staff to get answers to additional questions that have arisen on that, and then we will readdress it at a future council meeting. All right, now we will move to 10-1, official billing reports for November of 2019. Any questions on that, council? No questions? Okay. Moving on to 10.2, sheriff's report for November. Any questions on that? No. I will tell you that I have seen them doing a lot more down in the neighborhoods. I've seen them out patrolling a little bit more in some of our neighborhoods based on some of our concerns by our citizens. I have noticed them out there enforcing traffic code, for lack of a better word. 10.3, budget report for November. Any questions? No. All right. 10.4, McLendon-Chisholm Fire Rescue Report. Any questions? Okay. No? No. All right. 10.5, is this one of the first reports where we were asking about the different things? All right, the CWD report for November. Council, do we have any questions on that? I know that's been a sense of something people have had questions about the service, so.
There's only three complaints that got handled right away.
All right.
I think
I know I
did
haven't had
receive
any
one that
issues
probably
with them.
didn't go there, but, so.
Say again?
I think I did receive one complaint here that may not have gone through CWD.
So if we could just include that, we had 4 complaints for a month out of however many we have as far as service. All right. Number 11, updates, discussion, or direction of staff. I think we've covered pretty much everything there. Council member reports. For me, I really don't have anything. I know we've just gone through the holidays. There's a lot of stuff coming down the pipe now that we're past the first of the year. I know Ronald Reagan Days is coming up. There's, we've got holidays coming up and all that. Kids are back in school. It's dreaded tax time for all of us, for Uncle Sam, and he likes his little cut of all of our salaries. But I really don't have anything as far as reports. It's like I said earlier when we did the prayer, keep our servicemen and women in your prayers, because there are tense times right now all over the world. To add to that, which I didn't think about this when we were talking earlier, and our first responders, if y'all have been following the news, when an officer is out there, whether it's law enforcement, fire, EMTs, it can be very dangerous on the roads. And this last week, we lost a Lubbock police officer, a Lubbock fire officer, or firefighter, and another one. Did the other one finally? We lost 2 Lubbock firefighters that were, those and the officer were all working a very bad crash, and they were killed in the line of duty trying to help others that had been injured. So keep all of them in your prayers, because it's a job that it's hard to do with the way things are going on in the world, and just those other things that happen. It's tough on those families. It's tough on the individuals that do it. That's about all I have as far as any kind of reports or announcements. Springtime's fixing to come. That's about it. Ms. Kippett, you have anything?
I do. We had the Lunch and Learn last Tuesday, and I want to publicly thank Mark Russo and Mindy and Gary Lovell. It was really fun, really interesting, and I thought it was a great roundtable discussion.
How many did we have?
We only had about a dozen, I would say, but
Okay.
it wasn't.
That's for a first one. I think that's
first one.
great.
I've got the second. Pardon me. Yeah. I thought it was really informative and a great way to spend an afternoon. Next topic.
Since we do have an audience here, you want to explain to them, since some of it's been on the website, what the Lunch and Learn is?
The Lunch and Learn, well, we had a lot of folks that were here, that are here, were at it, but the next one is on February 4th, Tuesday, February 4th. That's at 12 o'clock here. And our guest speaker is going to be the DA, Kenda Culpepper, and she's going to talk about the crime statistics in Rockwall County and go into some of the things that happen here in Rockwall County that you might be surprised in an unfortunate way that actually do happen here. So she'll be here. We set it up round table. She'll speak for probably about 15 or 30 minutes and then answer 30 minutes worth of questions. I'll be putting more stuff out that on the website, but I would really hope that we have good participation for that, because I think we'll all learn a lot from her. And I just had to ask if we've had any takers for the Monument Committee yet. Did you get anybody
I don't think so.
asking about that yet? Because I really do want to have some help on the landscaping / monument committee workshop, or otherwise I'm going to be doing it, and that I have a brown thumb, so I really need some help on that. And that's basically all that I have. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I will say, like you said, Keith, we're going to do them we're going to do the Lunch and Learns at 12 o'clock between now and June, and then in the summer we're going to switch to evenings, so that those folks that work in the day or that work during the day can maybe attend in the night. So some other topics I've got coming up: a tour of the fire department and some chili. I'm going to get a speaker from the Rockwall School District to include one of the school board members to come. I'm going to have the mayor do a status of the city that he'll be doing probably for the chamber in the upcoming months. So he's graciously accepted to do that, and we'll just. It's a great opportunity just to get to meet your neighbors and learn a little bit about our city and our county. Thanks, Keith.
You're welcome.
That's here at City Hall.
Here at City Hall.
Yeah. Now there is I've got it in my calendar, but I think next month there is like the Rockwall County Chamber thing coming up, where I will be there doing a State of the City address as well. We did one last year. We've been invited to come back, so. We'll be doing that as well, but I don't remember the date right off the top of my head, but it's in February. Mr. Hodges?
No reports or updates.
Okay.
Thank you.
Jim?
No reports?
Okay. Mr. Dahl, anything?
Sure.
Okay. Oh, I jumped over. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Trudy?
No, nothing.
Okay. Do we have any city events coming up anytime soon?
We've got the DAR with the flag burning.
Flag
Flag burning. Look,
Honest mistake.
Technically.
kind of passed that on to Lorna. Had a little bit.
The flag retirement ceremony.
Retirement. Sorry. Yeah. So that comes. It's on the 25th. Is that correct?
Yes.
Correct, 3 o'clock. Public is encouraged to come. And I forgot to mention that we're going to have a receptacle here right outside, for if you have flags that need to get destroyed, you can bring them by all the way up until the 24th. And there also is a drop box at the School of Music down in Rockwall, and a box at the old county courthouse in the basement.
It's just the flag, not the
County
pole and all
Yeah,
that
it's the
stuff.
historical
Just-
one,
Yeah,
yeah.
just the flag.
Right. All right. Well, if there is nothing else, since we've gotten through everything tonight, it is 8:40.
Yeah, they did.
Tonight's meeting is adjourned.